Now, does your present advisor keep you informed? Now, to me, this is critical, and there's nothing that bothers me more is when people come into my office and they sit down and we start going through their stuff, and I find that they've got annuity contracts or mutual funds or things like that that they've had for years, and I say, okay, it says here that your advisor is, you know, Michael Smith or whoever it might be. And I say, okay, well, is Michael Smith taking care of this? Are you meeting with him? Are you getting together with him on an annual basis, or at least every 6 months or something like that? And what they tell me is, no, I haven't seen Michael Smith since, you know, we got this 3 years ago. And to me, that's just criminal. It's important that you keep in touch with your advisor, and that he keeps in touch with you, because things change in your life. Things change in the economy. And so if you've got an advisor that's not keeping you informed, he's probably not doing his job. So I say, when was the last time you had your portfolio reviewed? When was the last time you went through this stuff with somebody qualified? It's important to do it. Little story I'm going to tell real quick. Had a client named Mary. Now, Mary was one of my best clients. She lived down in St. George, and I go down to visit her once in a while. We were very good friends. She'd call me maybe a couple of times a month, and we'd just talk. And sometimes it was about her account. Sometimes it was about something else. She'd call me all the time, and we'd just chat. A good client. Sometimes she'd call me about crazy stuff. She was kind of a crazy lady. She was a widow, but she was only about 55 years old. One time Mary calls me up and she says, Ed, I have got a situation that I'm a little bit worried about. And I said, okay, Mary, you go right ahead. Tell me what it is. She says, well, I feel this lump in my stomach, and I'm just calling you to see if I have enough money in my account to go see the doctor. Now, you got to understand, I know that sounds crazy to a lot of you, but you got to understand Mary. Number one, she always would call and ask me everything. So when I heard her say this, yeah, that was kind of weird, but it wasn't totally abnormal for Mary, because she'd call me and ask me crazy stuff all the time. And the other thing about Mary is she had a very large account, a couple $1 million in her account. So she definitely had enough money to go see the doctor. So I said, Mary, you are just fine. You go see the doctor, but you've got to promise me one thing, that when you get back from the doctor, you call me and tell me what happened at the doctor's office. Okay, let me know how you're doing. So she hung up, she went to the doctor. I went off doing my thing, and a couple of days went by and I didn't hear from Mary. And I was getting a little bit concerned, because it wasn't like Mary. So I let maybe 3 or 4 days go by, and I called Mary. And I got her answer machine, left her a message, said, Mary, you know, and I'm worried about you, thinking about you, wondering how the doctor's visit went. Give me a call, let me know what's going on as soon as you can. Well, Mary never called me back. I let a couple more days go by, and I called her again and said, Mary, I'm really concerned about you. Please call me back and let me know how you're doing. Never got a call back from her. Well, I knew that Mary's mother, Margaret, lived here in the valley, over in Salt Lake. And so what I did is I jumped in my car and I went over to Margaret's house, Mary's mother's house. I knocked on the door and I said, and she answered the door. I said, Margaret, I'm Ed Griffin. I don't know if you know me or not. I don't know if Mary's talked about me, but I'm her financial advisor. And she called me and I kind of explained to her what she had said. And Margaret said, oh yeah, I know you. Mary talks about you all the time. Come on in, I'll tell you what's going on. So Margaret sat me down and said, you know what, Mary went to the doctor, and what happened there was the doctors told her that she had a very rare form of liver disease, and they said there was nothing they could do for her. They sent her home and basically sent in hospice for Mary. They gave her maybe a couple of months to live. And I expressed my condolences to Margaret. I said, I'm so sorry to hear that. Margaret, by the way, is like 90 years old, Mary's mother. A very nice lady, as I've gotten to know her. But I expressed my condolences to Margaret, and I said, you know what, Margaret, there's a couple of things we need to do. I've been working with Mary, as you know, for a number of years now, and Mary has told me on a number of occasions that she needs to get her estate planning in order, but I've never been able to sit Mary down and actually do it, because she's only 50, 55 years old, and she hasn't felt it's been that important as of yet. Well, now it's important. Now, you got to understand, Mary had one daughter. Her one daughter's in her early 20s, kind of a good girl, but kind of off with the wrong friends and the wrong boyfriends. And Mary was extremely afraid that if she got her whole $2 or $3 million estate at once, then her daughter would just blow it, go through the money. And she did not want that to happen. She wanted to set it up and do some estate planning. So I told Margaret, I said, we got to get down to St. George and we got to get this thing set up, because if we don't, it's going to be just a bad situation for everyone. So what we were able to do is I jumped in the car with Margaret and Mary's brother, who also lived up there. We drove down to St. George, and we were able to meet with an attorney that I happen to know down at St. George, and we were able to get things all set up perfectly for Mary's situation. We met with the attorney. She was able to divide the estate up in different pieces for her daughter. She was able to give some money away to some things that some causes that she really felt strongly about, and we got everything set up. And then we drove back to her house, and we met and we just talked and visited for a while. And then I left. I said, Mary, I'm taking off. I love knowing you, Mary. You've been a good client, a good person. I wish you luck. I'll pray for you. And gave her a hug, and off I went. Well, about a month later, I get the call from Margaret that said Mary had passed away. She only lasted about 1 month after that. Isn't that crazy? It's crazy. Well, I get the call from Margaret. She passes away, and Margaret says they're just settling the estate. She'll contact me. This was towards the end of the year, but I'll never forget. Come to about the end of December, about Christmas time, Margaret called me up and said, Ed, we just want to thank you for what you did. It really meant a lot to us that we were able to get that estate set up the way that Mary wanted it before she passed away, because if we wouldn't have done that, if you wouldn't have been there for us, then it would have been just a giant mess. And we would have been fighting probably for months or even years to get this thing settled how he wanted it. So, basically, to me, that's the reward for my job. And I'm not standing up telling you that I did anything that anybody wouldn't do. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and I executed the plan. But I also had a good relationship with the client. And to me, that's key. How many of you have a relationship with your advisor where you, in that situation, you feel like you would get taken care of? Because you know how many estates get blown up because they don't do the planning? You know how many estates don't get passed on to the right places because they don't do the planning? It's extremely important to make sure that that happens. So if you haven't had your portfolio reviewed for a while, let's make sure you do that.